And it's going to happen very, very quick, I have to tell you, because 29 hours from now, we know the result, which will be on tomorrow evening by the time that they come back from Balmoral in Scotland. Very unusual, because normally it's at the palace at this time, because the Queen, sitting in her favourite residence, is what we're told. She is always in Balmoral between August and October every summer.
Yeah.
So therefore she's not coming back to the palace as well. And of course Boris, as Prime Minister, goes up there.
And by the way, at 8:30 we'll have an update from Rupert Bell, our royal correspondent, about the Queen's health and exactly what's going on there, amongst other royal stories. So yeah, that's quite historic that the new Prime Minister and the old Prime Minister will be going
Absolutely.
up there.
Liz is up there, and then comes back Boris. And
1,000-mile round trip, isn't it?
Something like that. Then Liz, of course, will put together her government, her cabinet on Tuesday, a Wednesday morning that they meet at the cabinet just before PMQs, and then I'm looking forward to PMQs Wednesday at 12 o'clock. But to answer your question, she has a big in-tray. So the
in-tray.
An in-tray is what some of the other networks are saying. I stole it from them. But let's look at some of these, because the recession,
yes,
inflation, energy bills, the Brexit deal for Northern Ireland, that's very important. Ukrainian crisis, which we've just been speaking about for the last 20 minutes or so. NHS waiting lists, millions and millions. How are you going to sort that out? Strikes across the country. Now, I've just named 7. It's doom and gloom, and that's what the networks, that's what the newspapers are talking about, because it's covered pretty much in a lot of the Sunday newspapers. Doom and gloom and all sorts of negativity. I want to spin a positive look at this, because Britain is now independent away from the EU. We have so many opportunities. Of course, our pound is collapsing right now. We need to get stability of the British pound. We need to prompt it up a little bit against the foreign currencies, especially the American dollar, because last I checked, it went down to 1.15, which is very, very low indeed. So once we get control of this, if it is Liz, it may be Rishi, but according to the polls, it's Liz, then she has her cabinet already in place. They're going to have a great deal of responsibility. They've got to sort things out. And there's great opportunities in front of us. As Boris says, that our best times are still to come.
Liz Truss, of course, a Remainer originally. She says she's changed her mind. Boris Johnson, of course, a Remainer as well.
Well, not really.
Of course he was.
He wrote an opinion piece at one time to say that he was a Remainer, but then, of course, he crossed the floor. And you're allowed to do that in politics. I do that in the news business.
He had argued for I don't want to get too bogged down with Boris, but he argued for the benefits of us being a part of the EU, and had said repeatedly he would vote to remain if there was a European referendum, so many times on the record that I can mention. And then, of course, as soon as the Tory leadership was up for grabs, he became a leaver. The point I'm making is
I have to say, even Nigel Farage says that we would never have won it. I say we, quoting Nigel Farage, but I also voted for Brexit.
Yeah.
We would never have won it had Boris Johnson not got on this side.
People fell for the fact that he was a leaver. I don't think he ever was. I don't think he ever was truly behind Brexit, and I don't think he actually truly understood it. But my question is, have we, and is there a danger under Remainer Liz Truss, if she has not fully committed to Brexit, is there a danger, and has it been thus so far, that the opportunities around Brexit have not been harnessed yet?
Yes, that is definitely true. But of course, if you look back to see what's taken place, firstly, we needed a couple of elections. Theresa May threw an election and she lost the majority.
I'm talking about since 2019, though,
I understand.
when we had that.
We had the 80-seat majority as well, but then we were hit with something which is called Corona, which then turned into something called COVID-19 as well, and that really set things back. And we lost a lot of workers in this country. And by the way, that they weren't kicked out of this country, that they were simply people who saw that the pound was falling. They weren't making as much money as what they could do beforehand as well. They didn't know what was happening around the world. They wanted to return back to their families, mostly in what was known as the former Eastern Europe. And of course, when things finally got back onto the tracks again, which is what we are right now, of course, we don't know what's going to take place as we move into the winter. We're struggling to look for workers in this country. Northern Ireland got left behind with this particular deal with
completely
EU.
Thrown under the bus by Boris Johnson, who had promised them solemnly that there would be no border checks whatsoever. It was an outright lie.
Yeah, that's gone wrong. There's no question about that whatsoever, and that has to be sorted out. Exactly how it's going to be done, they must have plans. Rishi and Liz must have plans for this.
Isn't the fundamental problem with Northern Ireland, though, that Brexit is not compatible with the Good Friday Agreement. And it's just the thing that people don't seem to be... The Good Friday Agreement states that there needs to be regulatory alignment between the North and the Republic of Ireland, yet Brexit means that you can't have regulatory alignment between the North and the Republic of Ireland. And until we actually either amend the Good Friday Agreement or put in a border, and that seems to be the sort of unspoken bit that people don't want to mention.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that as well.
And so how on earth can that still be solved without Northern Ireland being thrown
Well, I'm
under the
very
bus?
glad I have to... I'm not the person responsible for that particular portfolio or any portfolio because...
I don't think it's solvable. And I don't say
Well,
that as a Ramona. I say it as someone who was trying to just state the fact.
Sure, it has to be. It has to be solvable without, of course, giving up Northern Ireland for ERA, for the Southern Ireland as well, and just dumping that because, of course, British don't want to do that. I believe the majority of the Northern Irish people don't want to do that as well, although it's been some time since we've had a referendum for something like that. There's not one planned. I'm not suggesting that there should be one. Many people have asked the question as to what would be the big problem if you put up a border. Yeah, I understand the Good Friday Agreement says that you're not allowed to have that. I get that. But what is it really going to start off all of the paramilitary groups from the south, the IRA and the real IRA, and the paramilitary groups from the north to start bombing each other? I mean, people raise that question. This is just simply if Northern Ireland is part of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, and Ireland is an independent country. I mean, that's one way of looking upon things, but everyone is scared to actually go to that direction because the Good Friday Agreement, in other words, an internationally recognised agreement, which is recognised, of course, by the Americans, as well as everyone else.
Yeah.
But the Americans are actually saying you can't do that. I don't know what the answer is. What I'm surprised about is that all those people who actually talked about Britain leaving the EU before we had that referendum in 2016, June 2016, I think it was, nobody actually raised this issue.
You're right. No one
I can't believe it.
Spoke about that. No one spoke about how the lack of border in Ireland and the peace that had been won in Ireland was dependent on both the UK and the Republic of Ireland being members of the European Union, because that's how that regulatory alignment without a border could be achieved. And I mean, the solution is a border in the Irish Sea, and that Northern Ireland has some sort of... But what is frustrating about this is that people who voted Leave, who think this is all Ramona talk, I'm not saying you are, don't understand that without solving this problem, people don't get the Brexit they voted for either, because if you got rid of all the borders, then there would be no reason why someone who would want to come into the UK couldn't just go to the Republic of Ireland, move up to the north and come over to the UK that way. So it's not fundamental for Remainers to solve this problem, or those who are angry about Brexit. It's actually more fundamental that people who voted Leave get a solution to this problem so that they can get the Brexit that they voted for.
Yeah, that is an issue, and it's something that I raised actually more than a year ago as somebody who flies into Ireland and then crosses the border that way, and then you're inside the UK. Of course, many would say it might be easier to actually just get a boat from France and then just sail across the Channel, because, of course, many people are doing it that way if you want to get into the country illegally. But it's not just the Northern Ireland issue that has gone wrong as well. It's also the fact that we're still tied to the EU, whereby that the European Court of Justice can actually say, I'm sorry, you can't send those people to Rwanda to do their papers and to sort things out, and to send a message, because that's against the rules and regulations of human rights, etc., which is one of the reasons why Britain, and there are many reasons why people voted to leave, but one of the reasons why Britain wanted to leave the EU, because it wanted to be an official independent nation. And by the way, being an independent nation is a tremendous responsibility, because now you've actually have to have a serious, sincere, smart government in place to passing the right laws for the British people.
Then we really are.
And if you don't have that, then you're in big trouble. And because the idea behind this is not to go work under EU law, but under British law. But if you don't like that particular government, then you kick them out 2, 3, 4 years later, and then bring in a brand new government if you don't like. But at the moment, what was happening, or before when we were part of the EU, is really, as British judges confirmed this, once the Maastricht Treaty was signed in 1992, that Brussels was the supreme supreme ruler of Britain and the rest of Europe, as opposed to Westminster. And a lot of people didn't like that idea.
And that's that, or perhaps Lisbon in the early naughty, I think it was 2000 or whatever year Lisbon was. That's when we should have had the referendum, I think, not rather than 2016, because those were when the really big.
But David Cameron promised that, and then he said, no, we're not going to have that referendum.
James, we've got to leave it there. Really interesting discussion. We must get you back sometime. That's James Marlow, Foreign Affairs broadcast journalist. Thank you. In the next hour, well, we'll talk to Benedict Spence, we'll talk to Rupert